Hi, good evening. Today is the fifth edition of Venkato Musing from Brains Unlimited, and today the hunter is being hunted. So, as a moderator, Jatin Chaudhury could have done hundreds of startup interviews, but would have been rarely sat on the opposite side of the table giving an interview. So, Jatin Chaudhury is a creator of eChai, which is a startup. Today, he joins us to take us through real events and the story on online social network. As a startup, eChai helps you find and interact with startup ecosystems all over the world, which includes the enablers, incubators, talents, events, government agencies, and many other make form of the ecosystem in the startup field. Hi, Jatin, welcome. And we are pleased to have today without a chai.
Thank you so much, Venkat sir. I am actually nervous now that you mentioned about it. Typically, I end up interviewing people, but I'm looking forward to this experience.
Thank you very, very much for coming. And we know each other for many years, but formally sitting like this, we had last time, as I remember, we were in IAM having a chai over there, and it was like a kata where we had it. And
Yes.
we used to have a lot of fun. So today, I had this opportunity of talking to you. So, Jatin, just wanted to understand, could you please take us through eChai, its conception and the concept?
Yeah, thank you so much. So eChai is more of a startup network. So we primarily host engaging startup meetups. So people gather over a meetup. Earlier it used to be offline meetups, now online meetups. And two things happens in a meetup. People get to learn something from people who have been there, done that, and it becomes a good networking opportunity. So precisely this is something that we do. And then once people meet each other, they form relationships, and some people would have found partners, some people would find investors or potential employees or something. But we primarily host those engaging meetups. We started 12 years back in Ahmedabad. So for the first 8-9 years, we were primarily in Gujarat. That bringing startups together over meetups, and they would went on to do a lot of interesting things. But last 3 years were very incredible for us, where we were able to start eChai chapters all over the world. So we started chapters in India. Actually, we had hosted our meetups in person in 40 cities. But around 15 to 20 cities, we were very active. That in every once in a month we will have meetups. And last 2 years, before pandemic, we were able to start chapters in 15 countries. So in 20 global cities outside of India, we were able to start our chapters. So that was an interesting phase for us. And then pandemic happened. And it has a lot of pluses, a lot of minuses. So one of the thing I really miss is that in-person experience. But due to pandemic, everything went online. The people's reception towards online initiatives has gone ahead also. So we were able to start online chapters in a lot of places. So we are actually in a process that I see that eChai could become that organization which could have chapters in 15 countries, and we are aiming for that also. So that is something work in progress. But at this point in time, in 15 countries across 25 cities, we host these meetups and bring a lot of founders together to help each other.
How did you pitch the concept to startup community?
So when I started in 2009, so a couple of things happened. At that point in time, there was a momentum about startups in India that people were more interested in talking about technology startups. And in Gujarat is anyways, of course, you know it better than anybody else, land of entrepreneurs. People are anyways entrepreneurial. But technology entrepreneurship was something that, some people were, not many people were interested. So I thought that, what if we create an organization which brings people together? And on the one side, I was always that guy in a group who's in multiple groups. So wherever I was part of all kinds of groups, and by nature, I was the one who used to bring people together. It's just that in 2009, we kind of focused on having that group as a startup group and meeting over the cup of chai. That's why eChai was started. So anyway, I already had a network. That was one thing. Another thing, I used to reach out to people. And I had made a list of 1,000 people to whom I used to email, and you were one of them. And not everybody used to respond, but you are one of those individuals who would respond saying that who you are, what are you trying to do, and why don't you meet? And in a way, you helped us connect with Nadim Jaffrey, who's the founder of Hearty Mart. He was featured in this series. And those of you are here listening to me, you should watch Nadim Bhai's interview first. So he connected with us. So similarly, a lot of people, who would either like, I would want to be part of it, or they would say, no, I know somebody who could be interested in what you are doing. That's how we were able to create that initial momentum. And that idea had its own time, because there were many people who were interested in startups. So they got caught on this idea that, this is something that I could be part of. So that's how we got the initial traction.
Just wanted to understand what is the state of startup ecosystem, especially in the land of entrepreneurs in Gujarat, India, and globally, since you have now become a global player, and which types of business appears to be most promising for you as of now?
Awesome. It's so overwhelming, right? So, for example, in Gujarat, eChai was one of the organizations which is fairly known that, these are the startup guys, or every startup would be. But at this point in time, there are so many startups coming up. Even I don't have a track of how many. So it's pretty big actually than what a lot of people would perceive it. So it's a great sign that, and that is the same thing I observed in other cities also. So if you look at Ahmedabad, if you look at Nagpur, if you look at Jaipur, every city would have a very similar trajectory. That, earlier there were some one or two winners, but now there are so many startups. So this is something that, my personal opinion is that, startup ecosystem in every tier 2 city is very big. So if somebody is from Nagpur, somebody is from Ahmedabad, they will feel that my Ahmedabad is very unique compared to a lot of others. But what I've observed is every city has a very similar trajectory. So it's massively scaling up across the world also. So for example, we've started our physical meetups even today also in Estonia, and the ecosystem over there is also, I see a very similar glimpse that, there are 10, 20 great startups from that city, and everybody else is, putting a lot of effort so that, who are the other next ones. So what I've observed that, for example, in 2009 when I started up, why I started up because we wanted to solve problems that we were facing. So initial idea was there in creating a student network to help each other. Eventually it became a business network, but idea was that I faced some problem when I was doing engineering, and that's how I started my business. So similarly, what I observed in 2009 to 15, there were a lot of people who would start businesses to solve problems what they were facing. The big trend that I'm seeing right now is that people are not just starting those businesses. People are starting that here is a big business opportunity. Here is something that I can really capture. Not necessarily they have faced those problems themselves, but they have an understanding about where the market is moving towards, because now also there is a greater support for startup ecosystem. That, if you are starting up, there are government grants, there are support systems, there are initiatives like what you started or what I run or similarly. So now people are not just starting those startups. People are starting startups where they see a great opportunity, or they believe that, they can solve some tough problems. So that's a great shift that I believe is happening. And I believe when people build such businesses, they'll do much better. So it's not just an emotional decision that, I face some problem, I'll start up. So now I see in the startups which are getting started in 2018, 19, but in 2020, 24, 25, they'll be very amazing startups. And another thing that is happening is now there is a greater startup ecosystem and there is a greater visibility. Globally also, there are a lot of venture capital firms or global ecosystem players. They are also trying to identify startups in tier 2, 3 cities. So same startups who would struggle to get market access funding in 2014, 15, probably in 2021, they don't face that problem because there is a greater reception for their ideas. So I see a huge amount of stuff happening within the ecosystem on a lot of sites.
So any current tendency that you're seeing among entrepreneurs recently, of late?
So more ambitious, I believe. So earlier, I'm not saying this is the truth, but my opinion. So earlier, if you start a business, then you have to do really well, and then you will get to the big leagues. That then you will say that what I'm doing is as good as somebody in Silicon Valley or London or New York. But what I'm realizing now, even the students who are just starting up, from day one, their aspirations or their quality is as good as anybody else. So that's a huge difference that I'm seeing. So they don't have to get to a certain level so that they can be at par with Silicon Valley startups. From day one, because access to information, they also have the same access to information. The funding support is also of the similar level, and after pandemic, it has become even better also. There are global funds, so there are a lot of funds from a lot of accelerator firms from Europe. They are also setting up their offices in India. So startups in India today, they are at par with anybody else. And I believe that is not just true for India. Probably somebody who's starting a business from Dhaka or Colombo, they'll also be experiencing a very similar set of things.
You mean to say there is a lot of change in the mindset where people are adopting it more positively and going on with an attitude saying that, okay, let's start and it will grow.
Yes, and there is a good momentum in the market also. Today, if somebody is wanting to start up, it would be little easier to get a talent compared to it was 10 years back. But one challenge is now it is very difficult to get a good talent because that individual is getting a lot of offers from a lot of other good startups. So I believe that is a good problem to solve rather than nobody is just worrying about what is startups. This is also a problem, but it's a good that it's a new problem, and eventually people will figure it out. How do we solve it?
So how can this new problem be addressed?
So new problem is that now there are a lot many people who are starting up, and they are finding it very difficult to hire good team members. And since the world is gone remote, the same individual who's living in say Vadodara or Rajkot or Bhopal or the same individual will get offers from all companies, not just from India, from their city, but from all over the world. So for a young startup, it will be difficult to attract good talent. So how do you go about it? So probably there are multiple ways. If you are passionate individual and if you are able to see some traction that the things that you are aiming for, and you got some success, you can inspire people to join you. Another thing is, can you groom people? That for example, you are from Ahmedabad, you're not able to get good talent from Ahmedabad, but in Nadia, in Mehsana, there are engineering colleges. There are people who would have aspirations. So can you figure out a way that you can attract them? So if you go by that route, and then there are very high chances that you can solve that problem. On the other side, as a society or as an ecosystem, we'll really have to work harder so that the people who are passing out, they are competent individuals. So that is one of but that's a long term, right? As an individual, you can't solve the world problems of the world. As an individual, you first try to solve problems that you are facing. So as a startup founder, you don't want to hire everybody, right? You need those 4 or 5 individuals. So you can figure out ways that how you can find those 4 or 5 individuals. Okay, one person from my personal network, or one person from tier 2 city colleges, one person from my native places where there is engineering college or a commerce college. So as a founder, you have to really figure out the way.
So yesterday I was reading somewhere that as a startup, you should employ people who are smarter than you. If you are employing people smarter than you, they make money for you. So how true it is, because in the game of startup, people think that it is my own business and I should work the way I want to work it. So how relevant it is to employ smarter people than you to stay relevant.
Yeah. I'm little intrigued by this statement. So like it's funny, like when people say I employ people smarter than me, so why don't you pay better than what you are getting from that company? As the owners or the founders, they'll be getting a lot of money, but the smarter guy that they say who's smarter than me, they don't pay that guy really well. So of course, but joke aside, of course you should hire people who are competent enough, and if you hire somebody who's really competent, and it will always come across that guy is also smarter. So idea is not that he's smarter than me. Idea is that somebody who can do that job really well that you are hiring for. And in the process, it would turn out that that individual is smart. So this is something and that's why I'm always intrigued. Even if you hire somebody smarter than you, not necessarily that individual do the job. So your aim is not to hire people smarter than you. Your aim is to hire people who can do the job and who are competent, who are ambitious, so that as the company grows, you also remain the people who can solve those problems for a much larger company. So one of the problems that people face is that as a startup founder, they are really good at 0 to 1 journey, but the same individuals not necessarily are good enough for that 1 to 100 journey. So as a company or as a founder, you'll always have to evaluate your options and typically try to hire people who are good for that job and who are little ambitious. So as the company grows, the same individuals can grow and still be part of the growth journey of the company.
That's a very interesting insight that which you're saying. So one thing which you really touched me was you said the journey from 0 to 1 is different, and the journey from 1 to 100 is different. So how important it is for people to understand these two journeys separately?
Yeah. So 0 to 1 journey as a startup founder is everybody, you have to be that charismatic individuals, or you have to be really good at one or two skills, right? Like if you're starting a tech company and if you're not good at tech, you'll not go far. Or at least you have to be individuals who can bring those tech people together. So, but 1 to 100 journey is very tricky, right? You have to do a lot of boring work. 0 to 1 is very exciting. That you all end up doing a lot of those glamorous stuff. So 1 to 100 is you'll have a manager, you'll have a HR manager, you'll have to understand taxation, you'll have to understand finance, you'll have to understand setting up offices everywhere. So sometimes these are boring compared to what a startup founder's journey is. But as a founder or the leader of a growth company, you'll have to understand this thing. So you have to internalize the things that get you from 0 to 1. Not necessarily the same attitude will get you from 1 to 100. So you have to internalize and you have to be a little more patient, and you have to build a good team. Some people are do great things, but they are not the good team members, or they are not the people and good people's person. So as if you want to go from 1 to 100, you'll need those people that at the same time you should be the one able to attract those people or be part of the team.
In marketing, we have 4 P's, but for startup, I believe how important is to have 2 P's, that is patience and persistence.
Huge. Persistence is something that, if you ask, if you read, or if you listen to the videos of anybody, at the end of the day, it will come down to this perseverance, that, you have to be that. And sometimes patience is also very important. So these are very, very important things. But the challenge, nobody would say that I don't have a patience. Nobody would say that I am not perseverant enough. So the challenge is that for how long you can continue, or for how long. So what are the things you should do right so that you can be perceived as some individual who have little more patience, or you can perceive little better. So my point always is that as an individual you should make a lot of good friends. That will come very, very handy. If you have a good support system around you, then even if you want to opt out, there are people who would say that that you'll get some confidence. Also, it is always great to have a good network, because sometimes as a startup founder, a lot of problems that you face are either a business problem or a business model problem. But if you have a good network, if you have a good sounding board, if you have a good mentor board, there are very high chances that you'll be able to solve those problems. So if you have a good support system, then you don't really have to struggle a lot. Of course, you'll struggle, but you'll always figure out a way on how to get answer to that problem that you are facing. So if you have that, then you'll be able to wait longer. You'll be a little more patient. That you feel, okay, today is difficult for me, but after a month, after 2 months, I am on a right path. So if you have people who can tell you that you are on a right path, or can guide you, or can be with you on that stage, then you'll do better. Because on the other side, you can't go and tell people that you have patience. If person is struggling, all of us have faced things in our life, right? We want a solution on that day. We don't need a guidance on that day. But if you have a good support system, then there are very high chances that you will get better at patience.
Another good thing which you're stating is having a mentor, so that when you are in trouble, you walk to them and then they give you the support generally to carry this business. That's a good also suggestion, which is. So just wanted to understand from you also, okay, how has the startup industry changed since you founded eChai, and how have you kept up with it till now?
So when we started, what we used to do, we used to just bring people together. And we used to do a very popular event in Ahmedabad called Demo Day, that new startups will come and they'll pitch in front of a lot of people. Today, we don't need a demo day, because every startup is getting a lot of opportunities. So what we used to do, what we were known for, is probably not that relevant today. So, but we were able to keep ourselves updated. So we would, for example, in 2014, we visited Singapore for the first time. So that was always the idea that, as everybody grows, their aspirations will grow. And as we would grow, we would also want to be in the places where these stuff happens. So we were one of the earliest ones to go to Singapore and try to figure out ways on how startups from India or startups from the network can also come in, but interesting thing happened with us in our avatar. So eChai's global avatar is not that, we are India guys and we're going to say London or Singapore and trying to connect Indian guys to Singapore. So of course, that is part of the things that we do. But interestingly, what we were able to create is, for example, what if somebody in Singapore would have started a local startup community? How would that look like? So eChai Singapore looks like that. eChai Singapore doesn't look like that, Indian group setting up a Singapore chapter. So what I've realized that so 2-3 things really happened that helped us to get to that stage or create this. So for example, in every city, at any point in time before pandemic, of course, there would be a lot of people who will travel to that city for some other purposes. And in the evening, they would look for some opportunity if they can network with the local ecosystem. So there were new people for everybody. So with eChai, we were able to get that kind of audience. So since we were not piggybacking on any of our local partners' audience, we were very valuable for them. And since we were very valuable for them, they would also work with us little better. So we are not, so typically when people expand globally, this is how they would do, right? They would go to people in London, they'll identify people who have a great network in London, they'll partner with them, and that's how they'll get started in London. In our case, we were able to capture those people who were new for everybody. Also, we were able to get better in bringing good speakers. Of course, for any community or for any network, it is always good, who are the people who are sharing their experiences with your community. So we were very lucky in that way that we were able to get very good speakers, people who would be among the best in that city. That was the idea. And we would also end up partnering with a lot of prominent organizations within that city. For example, when we started our Singapore chapter, we started doing a lot of our meetups with Nanyang Business School. They had an entrepreneurship club. So that gave us a lot of good branding or good credibility that, we were able to work with some of the best institutions in that city. For example, when we started in Melbourne, we started eChai chapter with RMIT, which is a very popular university. So anybody who's in London, they would have heard about RMIT. They would have heard about RMIT Activator. So they will see eChai as an organization which works with some of the best organizations in that city. The people who would come as a speaker, they would also be a very known speakers. So our first impression was that. Of course, in Ahmedabad, we started at a tea stall, and not necessarily with people who were successful entrepreneurs, just people who just start up. So our international avatar was very different than what we were doing for the first 9 years. But what I realized as the ecosystem grows, everybody ends up doing very similar things. So what eChai does now, eChai brings people together. So a lot of our meetups would be around a very specific skill set or be about very specific industry. For example, direct D2C brands as a word is catching up. So we will do a very separate panel around bringing D2C founders together, bringing education founders together. Or we'll do a lot of events around fundraising that a lot of investors will come. So this is something what we do, and this is something somebody else does. I would say everybody would end up looking very similar. But with eChai, we had our own way of doing it. For example, all our meetups would start on time, exactly on time. So what I always believe that, at scale, it will depend on whether you can scale or not. But in sincerity, we can be as good as anybody else. So with the eChai, idea was that we would do a lot of basic things really, really right. That, for example, the kind of speakers would always have a good gender diversity. That, in fact, now we have more female founders as speakers than male founders. And of course, the events that we do are not promoted as female speaker events. But there is a conscious effort every time to do those basics right. So on a single unit basis, it will look very similar, right? There is an event, eChai does events, and there are similar business networks who do events. But on a grand total, there is a certain style or certain aura that we have, that how we would operate.
So after speaking to you, I can only say that we cannot underestimate the power of chai. So one is Jatin, basically, who runs an eChai, and one goes on to become the Prime Minister of the country. So chai is very, very relevant over here. Jokes apart, what kind of membership options do you have in your forum? I see there is a membership forum, and what is in store for the people who become a member?
So it has evolved now. So earlier it was, for the first 9 years, it was zero, right? There was no membership. You used to just do event. Then it became 100 rupees per year. Then it became 500 per year. Then it became 1,000, 2,000. At this point in time, we have two memberships. One is which is very recent. Earlier it was for a long year or two. It was 2,000 rupees per year, where you get access to our events, offline events or online events. And you can get connected with any other founders within eChai. So we have changed that model a little now. So right now the model is there is an individual membership which is 5,000 rupees per year. So in that 5,000 rupees per year membership, basically you get access to meetups. That is one part. Second, we connect you with relevant people. So before that, it was that you be part of our meetups, you be part of our platform, and on your own you build those relationships. Now we have changed it, and now we have increased the prices 5,000, where we are saying that if you become a member, we will personally connect you with relevant people. So basically, if you be part of eChai, you will be able to build those 50 good relationships over the period of time. So our idea is that between me and my partners, we thought through that, after pandemic, you reflect on that, what you're doing, what you want to do. So so now we are at a stage where we believe that it's not that eChai has a potential, but we don't want to build a business which just revenue wise just increases. There are certain calculations we have made that if we make this much of money, we could still continue and grow faster. So that's why idea is that with a membership, we want to work with certain set of people. That's why the membership price has increased to 5,000. That if we achieve a certain set of number, we are fine. Even if we don't make any money from this. And of course, our work has increased. Our offering, we do a lot of events. I was mentioning that I believe that we have a solid opportunity that we could become a community or a network which has presence in 40-50 countries. So we are on that path. But on monetary terms, this is something that you get access to our network, and we personally connect you with relevant people. Also, we have a business membership where we work with certain organizations in a much deeper way. For example, CII at IIM Ahmedabad is our business partner. So we do a lot of events together. Or there are a lot of other organizations where we plan events. So anyways, we do events. So we do certain events which are relevant for them also. So they become our co-host. Or in certain businesses, we help connect them with the relevant set of people. So individual membership, which is 5,000 rupees per year, and business membership, which is depends on what is the use case that we have with that partner.
So from an eChai network, you're also turning into an aggregator, where you're helping people meet, give them the ideas and make them meet. That was what. So tomorrow you can be a big aggregator also, where two people can meet and you can make them meet and try to make their work more easier. That's a good thing.
Correct.
So how many entrepreneurs and speakers have already been registered in your forum till now?
So I'll give you some context. For example, last year we did this Co-Rise Summit. It was a 3-day online summit where we had folks from 25 different countries, and there were 96 speakers. In 3 days, 96 speakers were part of that. And then last year in December, we did this Southeast Asia edition, where 32 speakers were there from various Southeast Asian countries. So every month, we end up getting those 40, 50 good people who end up coming as a speakers. On our website, we have 16,000 people who are registered on our website. But our model has also changed now. So now we are not promoting it as an online platform. So now those who would want to attend events, they would just do a one-time registration, or they would just fill up a form. So over the period of time, 30 to 40,000 people would have attended our event. But when we partner with colleges, that number shoots up, right? Because we would do an event in a certain college and 1,000 people will attend. So that's how that number keeps on fluctuating. But we would have 3,000 to 4,000 very good speakers, like people, founders who. So that number would be huge. And as we grow, that number would just skyrocket, I believe, because as we start in 50 countries, that would get scaled up really, really well.
Right. So one thing which I want you to help us to understand is success stories, anything which you would like to share about startup companies' growth since joining eChai. So any data or anything which you can give so that people understand how many people have actually grown under your umbrella.
So there are so 2-3 things. So there are a lot of startups. So it is up to them to tell that and whether eChai has helped or not. But I will share a couple of stories. But they have shared it publicly. So now with eChai, our offering is or something that we evolved into. What we say that what I personally like doing is bring people together. That is something I like doing it. So we could have taken any other form that we could become a network which has startups get investors and get some cut or something, but we didn't go that into that path. So our idea is what we deliver is a great meetup experience. And how people get benefited from that meetup experience is very different for different people. For some person, it's a great knowledge. For someone, they met somebody who end up becoming a great partner. So our experience is our job is to deliver that great meetup experience where you learn and you network. So that is on site. But there are examples where people have found partners, they have found lifelong friends actually from network, which is a huge thing to do, because if you analyze our lives, we would have just 10-15 good friends. So if you have contributed one friend to somebody's life, that's a huge contribution. So that is one. But for example, there is this company called Menstrupedia, where Aditi and Tuhin are the co-founders. So Aditi and Tuhin, they also mentioned that eChai was one of the first platform for them to share about their idea publicly. And they found some good supporters from there. And Menstrupedia is a massive company. In fact, today, because of Menstrupedia, we get a lot of support, because we go to New place and they say who you are, and they say, okay, eChai is also associated with Menstrupedia. So the kind of help eChai would have given them, I believe they've also given better help to us, because they are a quite known organization. And there is another company called allevents.in, where Amit and Ruchit are the founders. So they attended one of the events that we had organized. And they and that's why they got an idea that what if we create a platform which brings all the lists all the events, and that's why and all events become very successful. And there are a lot of other folks who would have got some sort of a benefit, because from different city also the kind of eChai experience that people would have in Gujarat, but the people from Bangalore or Chennai, from Hyderabad, they would have a very different experience of eChai in those cities. And probably I also don't have that experience. Even though I would identify speakers, I would get the venues where our local team members would bring, but the kind of relationship they would have built is something even I am not that aware. But I have a hypothesis that if you bring people together and if you keep a certain tempo and certain aura, and then good things will happen. And that has continued.
Sorry, go ahead.
And that has continued. So when we would have a meetups in Toronto or Estonia, the same vibe has happened. So it's incredible, because I haven't been to all those places, but eChai meetup happens. But I believe this is the vibe that works for everybody.
I completely agree. People come back to you and say, like Menstrupedia was a good example that you said. If they come and say, okay, they got benefited of association, then okay, these are the people who have benefited. So your future plan in India as well as international. How many states in India as of now you are working with?
So in 15 cities, we are very prolific. The top 15 cities of India. So our idea is that, so one of the things I realized, where there is a momentum in the ecosystem, what eChai does flourishes. And that is something that I was able to experience when we went to global cities, like eChai in, say, Estonia, eChai in Toronto, eChai in New York, because there is a bigger ecosystem. There are more number of people interested in startups. There are more number of people from outside interested in the ecosystem in that city. So we can potentially capture a lot of things. And since we have multi-nation or multi-city access, we become valuable for a lot of people. So somebody is super connected in New York, when that individual would want to do things in Southeast Asia or Australia, then eChai becomes valuable. So since we are spread very well, we are valuable for someone for some different reasons. So that is the hypothesis that we had, and that is what we will continue. So that's why, and ecosystem is increasing everywhere. So if you look at Kenya or if you look at any other Namibia, there is a booming ecosystem over there also. So I realized that, we have identified certain niche that, globally also in 50 countries, we see that, we could become that organization. And hopefully when the pandemic ends and we could get started with in-person meetup experiences, we will become that one, that we will do that. In India, 5-6 years back before we went international, I always had this thing that, we could be in every district in India. But, but it takes time. Because, but, we are doing, one of the things we are doing right is we are ready with all the ingredients. As the ecosystem gets better anywhere, we could really go there and establish ourselves, or we could do those things, because we understand what programs would work. We understand what kind of needs they would have. So for example, in Guwahati or in Bhubaneswar, we also have a good presence. That in every month we would do certain meetups. But as the ecosystem would get better in Cuttack, for example, today we don't have a presence in Cuttack. But maybe 3 years down the line, when things will get better in Cuttack around startup ecosystem, we could get there easily compared to a lot of other similar looking organizations. So that is something that we are seeing. That so the idea is that the places where there is a slightly better ecosystem, there is a momentum in the ecosystem, we double down on that, and we wait that as the ecosystem gets better in tier 2, tier 3 cities, we could still be valuable for those people.
Yeah, obviously India is developing more in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and you have a lot of opportunities to actually showcase your organization, as well as have a very huge networking opportunities. And these people really don't know how to go about it. So you can also be a very good platform for them to showcase what it is. So it is really great talking to you, Jatin. So any message that you would wish to give to the current breed of startups, what exactly is needed, and any advice which you would like to give it to them?
पहले मैं बहुत ज्ञान देता था कि you should be skillful, you should be helpful. लेकिन after pandemic, you reflect on things. What I realized, make good friends in life. ये आपके प्रोफेशनल में भी काम आएगा, आपके पर्सनल लाइफ में भी काम आएगा. So idea is make good friends, but the challenge is, how do you make good friends? You can't just say that you are my good friend. You have to be valuable for people, and you have to care for people. And how do you become valuable for someone? Unless until you are competent enough. So it's a cycle, right? If you are competent enough, then you can be valuable for people. Then you'll be getting more opportunities to use your leverage to build relationships with others. But the idea is that you take this path, that try to be valuable for the people and build good relationships. That will come very, very handy in life.
Thank you very, very much, Jatin, for sparing your valuable time on a Wednesday evening. I know
thank you so much, Venkat sir, for the opportunity.
So I hope and pray that you help more startups and help the country to grow much better. Thank you very, very much, dear.